Welcome to Megs & Co. in the studio. My name is Meg and I am the yarn dyer and owner of Megs & Co., a hand-dyed yarn company that's located in Western New York, and I am so happy that you are here. If you love yarn and all of the wonderful things that you can do with yarn, including yarn dyeing, knitting, and crochet, you are in the right place. So let's jump in. Last time we were dyeing yarn. Today we are in my yarn shop. Behind me is the yarn wall. This is all of the Megs & Co product that you can find online. So this is where, once everything is done getting dyed, it lives here until it is purchased and sent home to you, or until it jumps on my own needles, which does happen quite a bit. I have lots of projects to share with you where a lot of this yarn has jumped onto my own needles. Here for it, not mad at all. Yeah, so last time we were down in the yarn dyeing studio and we were working on a really fun project, and I am so excited because not only do I get to share with you the results of that fun project, but I get to share with you a finished object where I even have already used that yarn. And can you guess what it is? I'll give you a huge hint. Da, 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 da. So yes, I am wearing the Puff Puff Princess Blouse. This is a shirt, blouse, whatever we want to call it. This is a pattern, a knit pattern by Park and Knit. It's so cute. I am absolutely obsessed. It really is fit for a princess. I just feel absolutely like royal wearing it. I'm in love with it. So yeah, so if you wanted to catch up on, there's actually two videos where I was dyeing this yarn. The first video is where I'm dyeing this red colorway, and I share the yarn that I'm using, all the techniques that I'm using, as well as the recipe as well. And then in that video, I dyed two different colors. I dyed this red color and a lighter color to go with it. In the second video, I used the rest of the yarn from that bag to dye a second set of colorways that was more of a peach color, and that is this peach color that I put on the little pops here on the sleeves and on the hem here down below. And so that's the second video, and again shared all the recipes and everything. And yeah, so I am so excited for how this turned out. So usually when I do my sit down, how did the yarn turn out, I'm usually not already wearing it. I'm showing you the skeins, but I just couldn't wait to get this on my needles. I took lots of photos of the yarn. But yeah, so let's dive in. Let's start with, how did the yarn turn out? Because if you are tuning into that series, you want to see the results, right? Well, I only have two skeins of yarn to show you. And that's because I have a little bit of a story to share. So I don't know what was going on in my head as I was preparing for this episode. When I say this episode, the episode 1 of dyeing this yarn series, because I goofed up the math so horrifically. Oh, I have a puppy visitor. I didn't shut my door. Usually I shut my studio door, but that's okay. Hi, Bubba. Are you gonna join us today? This is my dog Logan. He's a Wheaten Terrier. Okay, you gotta be a good boy if you're gonna be in here. He will. He's my snoozy boy. He'll go to sleep. I don't even know if you can see him on the video. I'm just petting a phantom down here. Okay, so there he is. I have a monitor that's like above my camera. Okay, anyway. So yeah, when I was doing my math, preparing for this video series, this tutorial series, I knew that I wanted to dye the yarn specifically for this pattern. So this yarn is Tundra yarn from Knomad Yarns. It's a super bulky, non-superwash yarn. So Knomad Yarns did provide me a bag of this yarn to dye a tutorial video for you guys. And I was really intrigued with it just because I've used a lot of Knomad yarns before. I even sourced some of their yarns from my own shop. So I've knit with a lot of their yarns before, but I've never knit with this yarn before. So I was going through Ravelry and looking at potential like projects like, you know, okay, well, what can you do with this? And this pattern literally had just come out, like just come out. Like I want to say within days of me planning this tutorial series. And it uses super bulky, I believe it uses the Malabrigio Rasta yarn, which is a single ply, super bulky, which the specs for that yarn in terms of like the yards per gram, so how thick the strand is, like the gauge of that yarn is very similar to this yarn. So I was super excited because I was like, oh my gosh, this yarn is going to work so well. And honestly, so in my mind, I was like, not only is this yarn going to work so well, but I think this yarn's actually going to work better because, well, Rasta is a gorgeous yarn and Malabrigio, their colors are phenomenal. It is a single ply yarn. And just the downside of a single ply yarn, especially with garments, is that it's going to pill much faster, much easier. And the other downside of any kind of super bulky yarn, when you have these gigantic thick strands, they're just not spun as tightly as a thinner strand of yarn. And that's something that like I really didn't understand until I started spinning my own yarn myself. But when you start creating bulkier yarns, the twist is just not as tight. Because otherwise you start getting like coiling and other like bad things start to happen. So because of that, your super, super bulky is always just going to pill and just not be as resilient as like your really thin sock yarns. Because those are just always going to be spun much tighter, like the individual plies of that yarn. So going into it, a single ply is always just going to be a little bit weaker, a little bit less resilient because it's just one ply of yarn. And then when you add in the factor that it is super bulky, it's just going to fall apart faster and pill. And so when you have a beautiful garment like this, you know, I think especially like in the armpits or if you are a bag wearer, you know, those like high wearing areas, I think you're just going to see a lot of wear and tear very quickly. However, this is a 3-ply yarn. So while yes, you know, you can see you have those huge giant plies to make this super bulky yarn, because you have 3 of them, those 3 plies, each individual ply is actually spun much smaller, so you can get a tighter twist onto each ply and then ply them ply them together so that they have a combined strength to boot. So you should get a much sturdier, much more resilient yarn. So especially if you're going to take all of the time to make a garment, it should have a much more long wearing. It should pill less than a single ply. Yes, and this is also a non-superwash yarn, and I always feel like non-superwash yarns tend to hold up just a little bit better as well. They just haven't been chemically broken down like the superwash yarns are. And I feel like that comparing like the superwash to a non-superwash would be a great video for the future. I need to like table that note for later. And this is also, it's not merino wool. It's Andean Highland Peruvian wool. So it's a cousin of the merino wool, so you still get that nice softness. But as I was doing my research about this breed of sheep, it's a breed of sheep that lives in the upper mountainous regions. Their coats are just a little bit thicker, a little bit sturdier. So you get a much more sturdier, just a yarn that still has softness to it because since it is a cousin of the merino sheep, it's just stronger fiber. And so again, to me, I feel like this is going to be the right choice for a garment. You're going to put in so much time on this garment, You know, you want it to last. You don't want to wear it, you know, 3 times and then it just looks like it beats a heck. Anyway, so where were we? Okay, so I was talking about my huge math error. So I picked my pattern. I was so excited. And the designer, she knit her sample for the pattern in this gorgeous red color. And I thought it was stunning, like absolutely stunning. I went through the project pages. It was so new that not many people other than the testers really had knit it by that point. So there wasn't a lot of other projects to look at, but of like maybe the 10 or so. This was by far like my favorite. I loved the color. I loved the red. It screamed like poison apple princess. And I just love how it just checks like all the boxes. Like it's a Christmas sweater, but it's also like kind of a Halloween sweater with that kind of poison apple Snow White vibey-esque going on. It's a spring sweater with, just because it is short sleeved, but yet it's still thick enough for spring to keep you nice and warm, and the sleeves just add so much extra to it that it's just absolutely adorable. So I love how all season it is. I think the color is perfect. The color is perfect for like Valentine's Day. So like literally, I think that like every holiday, like you could pull this out and it's like appropriate. So super excited. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going for the red. So I picked red. So I'm doing my math, and for my size, so I knit the size 3. I have a 37-inch bust, so I knit the size 3. This has you do 0 to, is it -2? It actually wants you to do a little bit of negative ease, so that you get that nice kind of snatched fit. It's a very structured fit. And I will say that structure makes it's a little hard to get in and out of. I needed help getting out of it the first time I tried it on, because like you can't, like there's like nothing to grab onto. Anyway, so I knit the size 3. So when I'm doing like the calculations for my size, I looked and I needed about 400 yards. I think I needed a little bit more than 400 yards. And I don't know what I did in my head, but somehow I translated 400 yards to 4 skeins. And so that's what I did. I dyed 4 skeins that red color, and that's what we did in the video. We did 4 skeins of that red color, and then we did 4 skeins of the complementary peach. And I'm gonna do some YouTube magic. I don't know, is there more room over here? Somewhere I'm gonna pop a picture of those 2 colors, because they came out beautifully. So obviously this is the red color. Came out gorgeous. It came out exactly what I had envisioned, exactly what I had wanted. I had dyed this color before, so I wasn't going in completely blind by this. I did have a test mini skein that I had done, so this wasn't like, you know, I was just kind of, you know, shooting colors into the wind here. So I mean, I chose this color, but you never know how it's going to come out on a brand new yarn. I had dyed my sample mini skein on superwash merino wool, and so of course this is a different breed. This isn't sock yarn, and those plies play a huge difference in how they're going to reflect the color, reflect the light, the shine it adds. It really makes a big difference in how saturated it could look. And yeah, and just the fact that it's superwash versus non-superwash. Again, usually the non-superwash, because those scales haven't been smooth, it tends to just not reflect the light as well. So superwash yarns tend to have kind of a shininess to them, almost like a lot of it is that kind of silicone layer that's been added to it. So unfortunately that shine is actually a plastic layer that you're seeing. It's not, so, you know, we call it a silk-like shine, but it's actually a plastic-like shine. So non-superwash yarns sometimes can look dull when sat right next to superwash yarns, simply because they just don't reflect the light like superwash yarns can. I feel like I've been saying superwash and non-superwash. I'm hoping that I'm putting The non's in the right place. But yeah, so while I had a sample mini skein, you still just don't know how it's going to come out. You know, is it going to look too dull? Is it not going to be saturated enough? Because the plies on this yarn are so huge. You never know, like, how is it going to suck up the yarn or the dye. So yeah, so I still didn't really know how it was going to come out. And like, I am so happy. I couldn't be happier. This took the dye absolutely beautifully. It took it really well, in the sense that, like, it didn't even take that long to exhaust. I think compared to some of the other yarns that I've dyed, it didn't really seem like, you know, I needed to cook it forever and ever. The one thing that I did notice, but this is very normal of any red, whether it's superwash or non-superwash or any breed of wool yarn that I've ever dyed, is that it really didn't do anything in terms of exhausting from the pan until I got that heat up. So it was just like, it's not doing anything, it's not dying. And then once that heat in the pan really got up to temperature, it went fast. So that's definitely the key with reds. They need high heat. And also to prevent bleeding, we want to make sure that you're also keeping the yarn on the heat for a little bit of extra time. So a lot of times once the dye bath is exhausted, once that dye bath is running clear, it's okay to take the yarn off the heat and let it cool. With reds, keep going. Another 20-30 minutes, as long as it's not boiling, bubbling. You're gonna wanna give it that extra time to really ensure that your dye is truly fixed to that yarn. As we all know, red bleeds. It bleeds. It just does. This is why we don't wash our reds and our whites together in our laundry. I will say that when I blocked this, I was expecting, you know, some pink water. It held very well. Like, there was a slight pink lemonade-y color to the blocking water, but I have to say, for a first wash, as in the first block of a super saturated red, fully red garment, I was really impressed. So not only does this yarn dye super well, take to the dye super well, it held onto that dye really well. So there was I would say, no bleeding, because honestly, it's red and your water is going to be pink. It should a tinge of pink. It should not be running rivulets of red. It shouldn't be pink enough where it's staining other things in your blocking bath. And this was definitely a case where I don't think it would have hurt any of the other colors in my blocking bath. So that was good. So why don't I have any of that lighter shade to share with you? Well, so I totally mucked up my math, because I don't know why I was thinking that 400 yards was just 4 skeins. I don't really know, like, what I was thinking, because I needed more than 400 yards. So even if I was like, oh, 400 grams, that's 4 skeins. No, I needed like 480 yards. So, like, again, I don't know what I was really thinking. I really don't. So my math, I can't even say my math, like, just my mental reasoning was just wrong. So yeah, so in that video, we dyed 4 skeins of the red, and fortunately, we dyed 3 skeins using that same exact red recipe, but just a super light concentration to get a nice light pink that was supposed to be a complementary pink to this red. And I say fortunately, because when I started knitting this and I got the body done and realized that I had 1 skein of yarn left to do these gigantic puff sleeves, and I got halfway done with 1 sleeve and ran out of the yarn, that's when I was like, oh shoot. And I went back to the pattern and I actually looked at the yardage and then compared it to the yardage of Tundra. I was like, what What was I thinking? Like, why did I do this? So I took those 3 skeins of light pink and did the math to figure out how much more dye I needed to add to take it from that light pink up to the red, because technically we had already added the same dye. It was just at a light concentration. So I just had to add, so I believe we dyed it at a 0.125%. So let's just call it 0.1 for easy on the fly math here. So I just had to figure out how much to add the other 0.9% to get it, those 3 skeins up to the 1% depth of shade that we dyed this at. Or did we dye it at 2%? We might have dyed it at 2%. Okay, you're gonna have to watch the video. I don't remember. So anyway, so I did that math. And I was a little nervous because, you know, of course you're dyeing, not only was I dyeing now a separate dye bath, so I've got a separate dye lot going on, but I'm also dyeing a separate dye lot, like kind of in a different method, because I'd already dyed it partially and now I'm dyeing it again. So I was like, oh my gosh, like you're gonna see it, you're gonna tell. I don't think you can see it. I don't think you can tell. Because what I ended up doing, essentially the sleeves are the new yarn and the body is the old yarn. And I think it's a near perfect match. I think if you can tell, it's because you're looking and you're just being mean. I'm kidding. So, I mean, of course it's a tonal yarn. You're going to see some differences here and there. But I don't see a difference. I really don't, other than like what is just kind of normal skein to skein transition. I think it came out really well. So super excited with that. So that's why I have none of the pink yarn to share with you. So then for our other experiment, I had dyed some of the, so I had 3 skeins left. So for part 2 video, I dyed 2 skeins of this light peach color and 1 skein of the dark salmon color, this nice, beautiful orangey color. So pretty. So I ended up using one of these skeins I swatched with this, which I'm so glad that I did, because I was nervous even at the beginning of not having enough yarn. So I had just preemptively swatched with this. And then I ended up kind of using it to just add a little pop of color. So I just used it for the bind off. And I really like how that came out. I think it just adds such a fun little pop of color to the bind off. And I know I probably could have done it on the neckline too, but I kind of like the neckline like not, because then you could wear like a nice necklace or something and it doesn't like clash. Yes, so super happy. So this is all the yarn that I have left from those 10 skeins, because I ended up needing basically 7 full skeins of the red, and I used every yard of it. I knit the body until I ran out of yarn, so I couldn't make this any longer. And then I used probably about half of the peach between most of it was the swatch. So between the swatch and this is an I-cord bind off, and so even though it doesn't look like it's a lot, because the yardage is, I'll have to look at what the yardage on these was, I'm forgetting, but you know, the I-cord bind off uses quite a bit of yarn. So this was knit on a size 13 needle, and then so doing the I-cord bind off on each sleeve, but then especially this, use quite a bit of yarn just for that I-cord bind off. So I have very little left of that skein of the light peach, but I do have this, and I love that I have these 2 left, and I think it would be a really beautiful, you know, maybe like a little cowl, and it would even match this, so that, you know, when the weather is a little colder, I'd have a nice little cowl to wear, or like a hat or something. So excited with that. One of the things I did notice, and thankfully I only noticed it on this color, I didn't notice it on any of the red. So Highland wool does have a much higher lanolin content to it. So hopefully I emphasize this pretty well in the tutorial video, but you want to make sure that you are spending the time to wash your yarn before you dye the yarn. It does come, you know, washed from the mill, but you want to take that time to give it a good soak in some sort of detergent that's going to remove any extra oils, whether it be spinning oils, but especially that lanolin. And thankfully, I didn't notice any areas of like resist or blotchiness on this red. This red came out really good. But take a look at this salmon, and it's really interesting. This salmon skein had a couple areas where there were some areas of like, yeah, of like blotchiness. So it does, so like this is clearly, there's one spot where it's clear that the tie was just a little too tight there. So like that was just the tie. But below it, yeah, it's just kind of interesting how there's those little speckles of kind of resisted areas. So usually when you see it like that, you know, where it's just these weird random spots, that usually means that there's some sort of contaminant that's on the yarn that basically is on the yarn, and so your dye couldn't adhere to the yarn. So it could be a spinning oil, it could be lanolin that's still on the yarn. It could even be like lotion from your hands. So a lot of times when you prep your skeins to start dyeing, so when you put your zip ties on and whatnot, getting in the habit of washing your hands really good to get off any kind of oils, especially if you use natural soaps and natural lotions that might have lanolin and essential oils in them. It's going to wreak havoc on your dyeing. So wash your hands really good or throw on a pair of gloves. So yeah, I just found that to be very interesting. Another culprit could be the dye. This could just be a problematic dye that for whatever reason, you know, maybe it just didn't dissolve properly or whatnot. And I say that because look at how perfectly the red came out. And I would actually expect the red to be a little bit more of a problem child because reds are tricky to work with. Reds, a lot of the red dyes don't dissolve very easily. So usually like once I find a red dye that I like, this one I very much liked, I stick with it. Because there's a lot of red dyes out there that are just, they're gummy, like they turn into this weird gel, like when you mix them with water, they don't dissolve very well. And they can come out kind of weird and blotchy like this. So it's very interesting. You know, the little scientist in me is like, what's going on here? I want to explore it. So I just wanted to share that with you, that I did find that result to be interesting and kind of worth noting. So I would definitely make sure that you're spending the time to really wash this. I had stuffed all 10 of these skeins into one bucket. So if I was going to dye this yarn again, I probably would not put so many skeins into a bucket. So now knowing that there's a potential for some washing issues, I would probably, you know, maybe take that down to like 8 skeins in a bucket, maybe even adding a little bit more soap, just to make sure that we're getting all of that taken care of. So what if this did happen to you? You know, obviously, like, you don't want to waste the yarn. So, you know, how would you fix something like this? So this would be something that, you know, one, you could just over dye it with a completely different color, and you could end up, you know, with a really pretty result, like a semi-variegated color. But if you wanted to keep this color, one way to fix this would be to mix up more of that same exact recipe that we mixed up, and then isolate these areas and working on it dry. Now I know it seems weird when it's dry, but you do this because it's easy to see the areas when it's dry. As soon as it gets wet, sometimes it's hard to see these spots, because honestly, I didn't see them when it was wet. So I would lay this in my pan, and I could see these spots, and I would take like a little squeezy bulb with my dye in the same recipe that we mixed up, and I would kind of squeeze it and right onto these areas and take my fingers and mush it in right onto these spots. Probably give it like 10 minutes or so to make contact. And then I would add my water to the pan, my citric acid to the pan, just like I'm dyeing, and heat it up that way. So you are running the risk that you might always see this spot as a little bit uneven. You know, you're never going to get that exact match, but I think sometimes it's better to have areas that are a little bit darker, especially once they're in the fabric. For whatever reason, I feel like areas in the fabric that are just a little bit darker are never as noticeable as like white spots like that. Like white spots tend to look like mistakes, but areas that are just a little bit darker usually don't. They look intentional because it's like too much dye and it adds tonality rather than like a spot that's missing dye. Another thing is, so part of this was definitely, so that one section right here, this spot was definitely where this tie was. So part of the problem was this tie was just left snugged on there too tight. So you always want to make sure that when you're prepping your yarn that you're giving these ties a good tug and really opening them up, especially on these really thick skeins where the strands are really thick. They are hand tied by the workers of the mill. So you have to imagine that, you know, they're doing their best, but you know, it's the end of the day, they might be working quick, whatever. So that's that. Okay, so what else? I don't know what else I can say about this other than absolutely obsessed. So I feel like I've been like talking about this forever now, so I kind of want to move on. But I did make one sleeve modification, and I wrote all about it in my Ravelry notes. So it actually started off as a mistake, but I like how the mistake came out, so I actually went back and ripped out the other sleeve and knit it how I think I knit the other one wrong. And then ultimately at the very end, I think even the first time was wrong, but I'm happy with it. So anyway, so there is an instruction on the sleeve. And hopefully I can say this, I don't think I'm like giving away the pattern, but there's an instruction on the sleeve that just says at one point that you are supposed to knit front to back 4 times. And it does tell you that after doing that you should have 8 stitches. So I took that as to knit front to back 4 times in the same stitch, because it doesn't say like across 4 stitches. So in the first sleeve, I knit front to back 4 times so that I had 8 stitches in 1 stitch. And I feel like the sleeve was so balloony and weird, and it actually kind of hung down quite a little bit, like it was almost droopy. And I remember when I first tried it on, I was like thinking like, oh, I wonder if I should have gone down a needle size so that the sleeves, you know, were more kind of rigid and upright. Like maybe my gauge had changed on the sleeves, because I did knit the sleeves on DPNs because you're doing a lot of short rows. Sleeves are kind of a pain in the ass, I'm not gonna lie. So on the second sleeve, the one, so I didn't think I'd messed it up at all. I thought it was fine. It looked super cute. I took a photo of it. Maybe I can pop it up somewhere. I thought it looked great, but I was thinking like, oh, it's a little droopy, but I didn't change anything, or at least I didn't think I changed anything. I stuck to the same needle size, and that sleeve took freaking forever. Like that sleeve took as much time as it took to knit the whole body. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna go and like unknit it and then reknit it on a different gauge or a different needle. Like, I love it. It's cute. Moving on. So then on the second sleeve, I was watching a movie and wasn't really paying attention. And instead of knitting front to back 4 times, I just counted to 4. So knit front to back. So essentially, I had 4 stitches. I did 2 knit front to backs and had 4 stitches. So I only did half the amount of knit front to backs. So my second sleeve was not as puffy, but so after you do all of your increases and your short rows to get your nice puffiness, then you do some rapid decreases to also get that puff and to get your nice cuff. So you can see these cuffs are pretty tight. Like there is no wiggle room here. Like if I ever get muscles, like I'm screwed. My dog is snoring. But yeah, like if I ever get like, start bodybuilding, like I'm screwed. Like there is no room here. It's not uncomfortable tight by any means. Like you can see like there's still some stretch and wiggle and give. And I blocked the cuff specifically pretty hard because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't squeezing me. But yeah, like they are exactly fitted. So when I tried it on, after I did my second sleeve, it was very obvious that I had one cuff that was kind of droopy and it came like all the way down to here and it was very wide open. And then I had this very structured, perfect puff. And I was like, what the hell? And I kind of figured it out pretty quickly just because the number of stitches at the end was like half of what I had on the other one. And I was like, oh, I bet this is exactly what I did. And so I counted the top and I'm like, yep, there's only 4 stitches up there instead of 8. So the puff is like half as big, but they came out so much better. So I ripped out that first sleeve, the one that I said I was not going to rip out and reknit on a lower gauge, but it turns out I didn't have to knit it on a lower gauge. I actually just had to do half of the increases, and I actually got a sleeve that I like a lot better, and it took half the time because I only had half the increases. So I wrote that what I did, and I wanted to make sure that I captured that because if I ever make another one of these, I would knit the sleeves like this again. However, because this is so tight, I think if I was to knit another one, I would, when you cast on your sleeves, I would cast on more sleeve stitches to compensate for how many stitches I'm going to have left down here. Because I think if I had, I don't think I need much, but I think if I had, because I mean, look at how huge these stitches are. So like 3 stitches would literally give me like an inch. So I think if I just had an extra 6 stitches so that when I do the decreases, I would end up with 3, I think that would be perfect. Anyway, so that is just the one modification that I made other than my little color pop, because I made a mistake. Oh, and I'm pretty sure that you're also not supposed to knit front to back in the same stitch, because I can show you. So at the very top, let me see if I can find it. So at the very top, so here's the stitch that I did that in, and you can see it actually makes like a little hole almost because you're shoving so many stitches. There it is, see the little hole? Because you're shoving so many stitches into that single stitch, it makes this ring at the very top. And as I was looking at the other projects, because after I made the mistake and did the second sleeve, and then I was just questioning my entire life at that point, I was looking at theirs and I was like, it just looked like how theirs comes together at the top was just different. Like it didn't seem like it gathered from a single center point like mine does. So see how it's not a bad thing. So I think I was supposed to knit front to back, like across the top of the shoulder, not into one stitch. But I messed up, just because the instructions didn't say in each stitch or across the stitch. So, because like it just, anyway, I didn't know what I was doing. So I messed up, but it totally works, and you get some really pretty points. Like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And my mess up, if it is a mess up, maybe it's supposed to be this way, except for the fact that I did half the increases. It's wonderful. Okay, we really need to move on because I've been talking about this sweater forever. So what's next? And finished objects. So I have one finished object, and it segues right into what's next for my making. So this is the Bergman hat. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. I don't know why, I like, it's popped up on my feed a while ago, and I just really loved it. I just thought it's one of those patterns that was like super wearable and whatnot. And I have a newer yarn that came out last fall, so fall of 2024, that is a US sourced Shanico wool worsted weight tweed, but a rainbow tweed. So you can see the little rainbow tweedy bits in there. And so in the fall I released it's called Rainbow Sprinkles. So I was going to call it the vanilla color. Going for ice cream flavors here. And then over winter, I added a second color. So this kind of charcoal color is called Noir. And I really like how it's like really subtle with the rainbow tweed bits, but it's really pretty. And for spring, summer, I'm going to be adding a third colorway. So I haven't named this yet, but this is like a rose gold, really pretty, more of like an orangey based peachy rose gold. Yeah, so I knit this hat, and so she has two different patterns. She's got the Bergman hat and the Bergman sweater. So the Bergman sweater is actually what I plan to knit, and that's what I want to. When I say I saw the pattern and I thought it was super wearable, it's the sweater that I'm talking about. And it's the sweater that I want to do in the charcoal and the rose gold. So instead of the white, I want to do it in the rose gold. But she's got this hat, and the great thing about the hat is that it's the exact same gauge. So you can use the hat as your gauge swatch. And I love that because I hate gauge swatching. It's like such a waste of time, but you have to do it. If you're knitting sweaters, you have to do it. Like you have to. And I'm so glad I did, because this hat doesn't fit even a little bit. I know I'm wearing my very princessy flower crown, but yeah, like it's not even close, not even. So, yeah, so I love the idea of at least you're swatching and making something useful. This is going to be as useful as laying on a table in my booth, just so that you can at least see what the yarn looks like worked up, but it fits nobody's head. So bummed. And the craziest thing is that, like, technically I have swatched this yarn. So I've knit a whole sweater in this yarn before. So, like, I already knew what my gauge was in stockinette in the round, but just not color work. So I thought just going up one needle size, that's fine. Like, or I don't know what I did. For some reason, math and me have not been going well together. But I thought, well, I guess I figured out my gauge based on that sweater. And then I thought, like, oh, I'll just go up one needle size to compensate for the color work, and everything should be good. Everything is not good. So I've reworked my math based on this hat, and I have to go up 3 needle sizes. 3 from what I knit this hat, if my math is correct. So do I trust my math that has failed me? Or do I just jump in? I don't know. So yeah, anyway, So I'm going to be knitting the Bergman sweater. And I really want to knit it in my new color and the charcoal. I think it's going to be really pretty, kind of moody. This will be a fall sample, so I feel like, you know, we're going into spring. It's April, and we're going into spring, and so I feel like this is very not spring summer, but I am working on my fall samples for my fall collection at the moment. So very fall, very demure, love it. So this will be next. I definitely want to get it going, get it started. It's one of those things where I kind of like to get my fall work going, get it started, and then that way I don't feel rushed about it, and I can work some other, you know, fun knitting. Not that this is very fun, but this is work. I can knit, you know, I can work in some other projects as we go, and then I don't feel rushed, if that makes sense. So that is next, I guess, for work projects. So last time I showed you my Scrappy Stash Buster blanket, and I have been making a ton of progress on this. I feel like now that I am on the decrease side of this blanket, it is starting to go really fast for me. So this is the Rain or Shine blanket by Stephen West. So I have been working on this using scraps from my stash. So anything that is like already kicked up and, you know, just needs a new home. I've been kind of organizing everything by, oh, I upset my dog. He did not like that. I moved that basket. So I've been organizing everything by color. This is all fingering weight. So I've just filled a huge basket with all fingering weight scraps, organizing by color to kind of keep things going in a gradient. And at night, usually this is like my Netflix and chill project, just adding different colors into this. So I have so many colors. It is absolutely ginormous. So last time, I believe I was here last time, so I've done quite a bit of progress. So yeah, so this is the halfway mark here. So I'm decreasing, and I love that I'm decreasing now because, yeah, the rows are getting so much shorter. And okay, I'm getting goofy. And I've estimated that if I keep up with this, I think I'm gonna be done by June. Like, I really do, because it's going really fast now that I'm on the downswing of it, and I'm so excited to have it. I just think it's so pretty. I just love how it has just like all the bits and pieces of so many different projects that I've worked on. It has some of my own yarn in it. It has all my favorite dyers yarn in it. It's like, it's just really fun, but I still have so much yarn left over. Like, yeah, so I think I haven't decided if I'm going to start another of the same pattern, because I really like the flow of this. It's very relaxing. It's very meditative, but because you're constantly changing colors, it keeps you really engaged and flowing. So I kind of want to do another one, but maybe like focusing on like just blues or just greens instead of like an all over all the colors kind of blanket. But I also kind of want to do maybe a style blanket where, you know, you're just kind of knitting until you're running out of yarn, because like, especially for some of like my smaller scraps, I really just want to like really use these. You know, so knitting something maybe where it's just garter rows across until the yarn is gone, and then change into a different color. Yeah, because yeah, I really need to, I'm calling this my scrap down. So I love my stash. My stash is very personal to me. It is hand curated. I love it. I love every skein. And of course I love my scraps as well. But I find a lot of times, like once they get to this point where I use them in multiple projects and they just get harder and harder to store. They start to get tangled and messy, and so I find that if I just don't get them into a project, if they start hanging out in this form for too long, they just become too messy and ruined a little bit because, you know, as I'm shaking this bag, which I'm going to just put down, yeah, they just get like all tangled and jumbled, and it's just a hot mess. So I'm really trying to find ways to scrap down. Yeah, I found like a really great shawl. I think it's the Melting Marls shawl. It's another Stephen West design. I love Stephen West. And I think that that might be a really great scrap down project as well, because I am like obsessed with some of the color combinations that have popped out in this, especially this most recent section. Like this section right here is like really, really, really pretty. So it's very mermaidy. So I was kind of thinking of pulling out those and seeing how much yarn that is and seeing if I can potentially turn that into a shawl. So that's where I am with that. I know last time I had said that my next project was going to be a doppio with my, I'll just point because it's over there, but with my Ghost Town fingering in Sam Patch. So it's going to use 2 skeins of Ghost Town fingering and then 1 skein of my Head in the Clouds mohair. And I have swatched, but I have not started it. And I didn't even swatch. I swatched in that yarn, but not in those colors because I just had some of that yarn caked up. And so I didn't want to like cake up new yarn. So I just used what I had to swatch. So I really don't have anything of that to show you. Spinning, I have been working on lots of spinning. So I started a new spinning project. I started a sweater spin. So I feel like next time maybe I can dive into that, and hopefully I'll have some bobbins that I can share with you on that. So I have never knit a sweater using hand spun yarn before. And I feel like I've been doing so much spinning now where, you know, I just have a lot of single skeins for like shawls and stuff, but, you know, I never really had a set or a sweater's quantity worth of hand spun. And I think I'm finally like consistent enough that I can spin my own sweaters quantities worth of hand spun yarn. So I recently went to a local knitting retreat that was put on by Sandy Long of Long Meadow Farms. And there was a couple different vendors that were there. And so I picked up a sweater quantities of BFL and silk fiber from D&D Fibers. And I am just starting to work my way through that. I have 1 bobbin done, but I haven't even taken it off my wheel yet. So I'm really excited about that. What sweater am I going to knit? No idea. I have one on potential. I know of somebody who is designing a sweater for hand spun. So I'm hoping that that comes out soon-ish so that I could possibly do that as long as my gauge works with the pattern. And when I say soonish, there's plenty of time because this is going to take me forever. So I have either 5 or 6 braids. I think I have 5. I can't remember. 5. We're going with 5. And each one takes me at least a week to get through. And, you know, and I don't necessarily spin every day. So, you know, this is a project that's going to take me months. So I am in no hurry. I'm enjoying the ride, enjoying the spin. So it's going to be quite a while. So hopefully this pattern comes out. If that is not out yet, I was also looking at the Weekender. It's a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I actually saw somebody else's YouTube where they had knit a handspun sweater in the Weekender, and I love the way that theirs came out. So again, if my gauge works with that, I think we're in business. Otherwise, I was going to just look at some of the basic like raglan pullovers and see if I could find just like a basic pattern that the gauge that I get matches and works out. Usually patterns by like Petite Knits are great for that kind of stuff because she has just such a wide variety of your kind of wardrobe basic essentials in both DK, sport, fingering weight, so you can kind of just choose your silhouette and then go from there. So that is what I'm looking at for that sweater. So that's what's next. For dyeing, I do have some exciting new things coming for dyeing. So right now I am working on putting together a color palette for Fox and Hound Merino sheep. So I have worked with this farmer before on a collaboration a couple years ago. I dyed some of their yarn and I'm so excited I get to dye some of their yarn again. So they have a flock of, you guessed it, Merino sheep. And her yarn is just so exquisitely soft. Like, you know, when you hear about that just buttery soft yarn, like this is it. It is just so soft, so like just plump and fluffy, and oh, it's so good. So this is a skein of worsted. Anyway, so yeah, so she asked if I would dye a bunch more of her farm yarn for her, and I said absolutely. So I'm working on a mood board for her, and once she approves those colors, I'm going to get to work. So hopefully I can share some of that definitely on my Instagram, but I'm hoping to share some of it here on YouTube as well. If you are local or semi-local, she's going to have this yarn available at the Central New York Fiber Festival. I forget the name of the town that it's moving to. It used to be in Bookville, New York, which is like south of Syracuse, and the festival is moving to like a fairground. So it's in a different town now, and I'm just not sure where it is, but she will be there. And so this won't be, I think she will have plenty of the natural yarn, which honestly is just amazing and would really make a great contrast with the colored yarn to do some beautiful color work. So yeah, so she dropped off a whole bunch of different weights. I've got fingering weight, DK, and worsted weight. And yeah, putting together a beautiful mood board that I'm really excited about. And then Knomad Yarns did send me some more yarn as well to play with, and this is really fun. So they just released a new line of woolen spun yarn. So yeah, it's like so new. Like there's like no tags or labels on any of this. So oh my god, this is so soft. Wow. So this must be the merino, because while this is really soft, this has got that same ooey gooey butteriness as that Fox and Hound merino had. Definitely has a lot of lanolin. You can feel it in your hands. Really nice. So Knomad Yarns has a new line of yarn coming out, or is out, that is all featuring woolen spun yarn. And so they sent me, this is the Corridal, and I believe that this is DK weight. So you can just see how like nice and fluffy that woolen spun yarn is. Lots of air, nice loftiness. Feels very similar to my Empire Estate, and look-wise, you know, it has that same loftiness to it. And then this is merino wool. This is fingering weight. Look at how nice. You can see, like, look at how much whiter the merino is to the Corridal. I always love when you can see the differences in the breeds of sheep, the wool differences. And, you know, it's super subtle, but, you know, if we dyed these the same color, and maybe that would be a great experiment, you will be able to see a little bit of those subtle differences, because you're starting off with a different base color. So they're going to give, you know, a different color to the final product. It might be like super subtle, and you know, you might not even see it under all light, but yeah, it's so much fun. So anyway, so that's what's upcoming. So I definitely have to plan out what techniques I want to try with this. There's not a lot here, but if there is any particular technique that you want to see on this yarn, let me know in the comments. If there's a color or maybe an inspiration. Yeah, it's always so hard to like choose, you know, what I think people might want to see, what questions people might have about a new yarn. I know, I'm so excited. I just want to knit with it, right? It's really nice. So I'm definitely excited to try it. I love that I get the opportunity to test new yarns and then share that with you, and hopefully bring some new colors, new ideas to you as well. Yeah, so with that, I am going to sign off. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, going over my projects. Went over a lot of stuff today. Yeah, so until May, and until we are back in the dye room. So usually I try to record one sit down, you know, go over all the projects, podcast, this kind of style, and then try to film, you know, 1 to 2 in the dye studio type tutorials a month. So when I say see you in a month, my next sit down will be in May, but then hopefully in a week or 2, maybe even this weekend, but who knows in YouTube time when that will be for you. We will be back in the dye studio to start dyeing up some wonderful goodies from Knomad Yarn. So until then, please like and subscribe to my channel. Subscribing to the channel means that you get notified when new videos are posted. So especially if you want to see my yarn dyeing content, you are going to get notified when those videos go up, go live. And thank you so much for being here. Oh, I have one more project that I did not share. So this is actually a whip that, this is one of the whips that I have been working on. I was like, I feel like I showed like nothing. Oh, and of course it's like in the middle of a row. Why do I do this? So I have been working on my own shawl design. Oh, and I hate that it's in the middle of a row. Hold on. Okay, so I don't know if that made much of a difference because I still have this on like the tiniest cord ever, but I am working on my own shawl design. I have been wanting to design a knit shawl for quite a while. I used to design crochet shawls way back, and I don't know, I just kind of fell out of it and haven't designed anything in such a long time. and I really wanted to get back into it. And especially with my Empire Estate yarn. So this is my custom spun New York State source yarn. I just thought it would be really special to have something that I made and designed in my own custom yarn. So I've been playing around with some design, drew this out, and just been kind of playing. So I started with some swatches, and now I'm just kind of letting the yarn take me where it wants to go. So it's going to be a triangle. I want to make sure that this is like pretty beginner friendly. So there shouldn't be any techniques in here that, you know, aren't too difficult or whatnot, or something, you know, that can't be easily learned in like a knit along, which would be wonderful. So the top section so far just has these really fun vertical lines. I think especially, you know, when you wear it like this, it just adds some really fun interest. And they continue into this merging colors section, which I think, like, even though like the lines don't change, just adding in the vertical lines of the other color kind of disrupts it a little bit, and it just, I don't know, it's so fun. So now I'm just doing some stockinette to kind of break up into a new section. And then I haven't quite decided what I'm gonna do for the next section. Part of me says garter, another part says maybe some lace. Haven't decided, but I'm gonna start adding in another color. So start going for peach. I started off with this teal color simply because it was a kind of an oopsie skein. This is supposed to be a skein of Ontario, and it just came out very light and very like teal and green. So I don't know what happened with this batch, but so I just grabbed it for myself. So it's kind of a one-off skein as it is. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. I've been taking super detailed notes. So hopefully I can, I mean, obviously I've got to finish the actual shawl first, but hopefully I can have this written up and sent to a tech editor, you know, as soon as I finish it. I'm not trying to rush myself or hurry through this. I'm really enjoying the process. And then, you know, anytime where I'm like, I'm just not really sure where I want to go with this next, I'm, you know, giving myself the space and the permission to just put it down until I do feel inspired. Yeah, and it's been great. And especially because like now that I've started, now that I've opened this door, I already have so many ideas. So I've already started sketching out a second shawl that's going to feature some really fun cables. So anyway, so this one, I obviously have to finish this first, and yeah, so I'm excited. I have to figure out like how many colors do I want to keep adding, because I don't want to add so many colors that it's, you know, from a price point to purchase the yarn, it's not accessible. But obviously I want it to still be like fun and beautiful, and not that not that it wouldn't be beautiful even in just two colors. I think the two-tone is actually really pretty. Oh, and now I'm like doubting myself, like, do I want to just keep it two-tone? Because two-tone is like really pretty. Like, do we even want peach? See? I don't know. But really loving this process. I'm really enjoying it, really having so much fun. It's been really nice. And especially really rewarding to do it in my own yarn as well. So yeah, so we'll see. Like I said, I don't know where the end is, so I don't know how far away I am from the end. I should probably get this on a bigger cable so that I can actually see how big this is, because hopefully it's not getting so big that I kind of need to be at the end. Judging from the length of the center spine, I'm not really happy with that length, so we still have a ways to go. But yeah, so I will keep an eye out for if and when, not if, but when I get this written up and then sent to a tech editor, because I will definitely need testers, and you guys, this is going to be my first one, so please be kind to me. Yeah, super excited about this. So anyway, so I definitely wanted to share this because this is something that hopefully you're excited about this. So this is DK weight. So of course this is a shawl that, you know, you could knit in any DK weight once it's ready and available, and oh, just so squishy goodness. Yeah, I really wanted to incorporate lots of garter into this. So the first half of it started when I was knitting the cream cardigan by Alicia Plummer. It features all garter stitch, and the fabric that it creates, because I use the same yarn, the fabric that it created was just so good. Like, it just felt so good in my hands. I just love squishing it, and I was like, oh my god, I want a shawl that I can have around my neck and almost like a fidget toy that you can wear, something that I can just squish on all the time. So that's part of why I started off with this garter. And then I was knitting on another whip that I did not share with you today. I was knitting on this. This is the Botanic Shawl by Stephen West, and it features these really wonderful vertical lines that are just slip stitches. So I was like, well, what if you took the same concept of like the vertical lines, and instead of having them like running vertically, you have them radiating from the center spine. So that definitely took a bit of math to figure out, but yeah, once I like drew it out, like exactly like how and I needed to get that started and how to have them radiating like that, I just thought it looked so cool. And yeah, I'm really happy. So I don't know, so maybe like just for the bottom, maybe I even just want to do sections of garter, because I'm telling you, like, oh, like it just feels so good. Anyway, all right, we're gonna end this video. So until next time, until May, because clearly I still have so many other projects to talk about with you. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, bye.